Hit me. Welcome to the Stave Off Podcast, a part of the Senior Rehab Project. The Stave Off Podcast gives you the information you need to stave off illness and injuries, letting you live a happy life. And now your hosts, Nick and Christina.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Stave Off Podcast. I am one of your hosts, Christina Novak. I'm a registered physiotherapist and current PhD student in the School of Rehabilitation Science at McMaster University, looking at healthy aging. And I am here with my co-host and business partner, Nick Previtt.
Hey, everyone. Hope you're enjoying your Tuesday morning?
Whenever you are listening to this
Yes.
podcast. So today we thought that we would deep dive into metabolism. A lot of the clients that Nick and I see every day talk about how once they hit 40 or once they hit 50, they felt like their metabolism just took a nosedive. And we're going to talk about if that's true and why it's true, or kind of what are the things that are associated with metabolism.
So let's be honest. Most people won't say, I feel like my metabolism dived. They used to say, I feel like I can't lose the weight anymore.
Well, this is true.
Yeah.
I gained weight when I turned X age. But metabolism is usually a huge driving factor behind a lot of the things that are affected when we gain weight or lose weight. So, Nick, why don't we first talk about what metabolism is?
Yeah, so metabolism is basically just energy transfer, which is so your cells and your muscles use energy to move. So every time you lift your arm up or lift your arm down, that's a contraction of the muscle that uses energy. Energy is produced through metabolism.
So what is energy in our cells? Like, what do we use as energy?
Oxygen, carbohydrates, things like that. So there's different types of cycles that we'll use. So we have what's called ATP in our muscles. So if we're doing very short exercises, say a squat or a deadlift, that's mostly going to be using ATP. And what ATP is a form of phosphate in our muscles, and that's what we'll be using. If you do a lot more of long distance exercises, say you're a marathon runner or you're a triathlete, that's what I was going for, you're going to use a lot more of what we call the oxidative system. So the oxidative system still uses ATP, but uses oxygen.
So you're getting really nerdy, but what does that mean for me who is 45 years old and wants to shed those extra pounds?
Really nothing. That's not something that you really need to concern yourself with if you're just looking to get back into shape or lose a little bit of weight. That's more if you're going for a performance standpoint or something like that.
Okay, so if we're thinking about metabolism, and metabolism from what you say is energy transfer. So it's energy in versus energy out.
No, sorry. So metabolism is how you produce the energy.
Okay, so if we're thinking about what drives our metabolism, is that where we kind of get into the calories in versus calories out argument?
Yes and no. So metabolism doesn't count in calories in or out. Metabolism is based off of activity. So the more activity you do, the more energy you use, the higher metabolism goes to meet the energy demand.
So if I'm trying to meet the energy demand and I run an extra kilometer, does that mean I get to eat an extra cookie? So because I don't use as much energy.
So we won't say a cookie, but you will need to consume more food to add up to the increase in activity that you're experiencing.
So I guess we have to do a better job as people who are in the health and wellness space of explaining that our metabolism is what almost is like a driver behind our diet. So if we know that our metabolism is a certain amount of energy that we're using, then that's going to kind of dictate how much we can eat every day. Does that make sense?
Yeah, exactly. So if you think of, we'll call it it's called your BMR, which is your basal metabolic rate. It's a big fancy word for if you didn't do anything all day. So you laid in bed and you just breathed and your body went through its normal homeostasis, which is just keeping it at a level playing field all day. That's how many calories you would burn.
Right. And so does that change as we get older?
It can. Well, right now, if you're looking at the research, it does. But that has a lot more to do with lifestyle-related factors as it does with age. So a lot of people think as I age, my metabolism will go down. It's true, but it more has to do with that your muscle density in your body is decreasing because you're being less active.
Yeah, I thought that was so fascinating. Nick and I were looking at the research on metabolism because, as we said, we had so many, especially for some of our women around, going through menopause, they were seeing, my metabolism was dropping a lot, or it seemed because I would do the exact same amount of activity, but I would still be putting on weight. And what some of the research showed was that our metabolism with age does decrease, but by much smaller amounts than we thought, eh?
Yeah, so you can really change it drastically by being more active and increasing your muscle mass.
Yeah. And so I think that, what was the percentage? Like 2 to 4%, I think, per year or per decade?
Almost up to 5% per decade.
Per decade.
After 25.
5% per decade after 25. That's crazy. But I think, when I was thinking about this, and as we get older, I think you're right. Like, some of the lifestyle factors. Like, I know that my grandmother, so I have one of my grandmothers on my mom's side, she sat a lot more as she got older. Yep. And I think that was more of a issue.
Yeah. So what happens so people who tend to be less active, their muscle density and lean muscle mass decreases a lot faster. On average, it's about 5 pounds every 10 years after 25. And that can be changed. Some people increase muscle mass into their 40s and 50s. It all depends on what your lifestyle factors are like. And that's muscle is a huge driver of metabolism because it requires so much energy to keep the same muscle going.
Yeah. So let's take a little bit of a step back. What do you mean by our metabolism is dependent on lifestyle factors? So what would you consider a lifestyle factor?
So if you go to the gym 3 times a week.
Mm-hmm. So exercise.
Yep. Exercise. Your metabolism is going to be higher because now your body is going to demand more energy.
Yep. So exercise would be one.
Yeah.
So you're talking about going to the gym. Would exercise also count walking to work?
So exercise is going to be dependent on what your level is right now. So say you sit 12 hours a day, you don't exercise, and you don't do anything really. You're very sedentary. You have a very sedentary lifestyle. Your activity level for you then is going for a 15, 20-minute walk. As your body adjusts to that and creates the necessary changes in muscle mass and things like that, you're going to need to go further and further.
So that sounds to me like training effects. Would that be the same thing? Like, does your metabolism adjust? And you just shock that too?
Yes, it still has to do with muscle mass. So muscle is so metabolically dense, and the fact that it takes, if you have 5 pounds of muscle and 2 pounds of muscle, the 5 pound is going to be, 2.5 times more metabolically dense, meaning it takes that much more energy.
Okay, so what it seems to me that you're saying is that for us, as we get older, if we want to keep our metabolism up and not going down, that keeping muscle on us and exercising are going to be 2 big ways that we can do that.
Yes, exactly.
Right? So what would be other healthy lifestyle factors that may influence our metabolism?
So keeping your own body weight down is going to be a big one. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of stats that will look at body weight for metabolism. But if you're in what they would call an overweight or obese, those can be thrown really out of whack. Because what happens when you start to store fat, you're storing energy to be conserved for later. So you actually use less metabolism throughout the day because you have a lot more energy already stored in those cells.
So with some of our clients, if they are overweight, so even say we have someone who's 150 pounds versus 200 pounds, their resting metabolic rates are going to be different. Can you kind of talk about that a bit?
Yeah. So let's take someone, we'll take me and we'll compare me to someone who's the exact same height and weight and everything. So I'm about 200 pounds. I'm 5'10", 5'11", depends on who you ask.
5'9", 5'10", depending on who you ask.
And I can range anywhere between, 12 to about 15% body fat. Right? So take another person, my same height and weight. You wouldn't consider that person overly overweight, but say they are 20% body fat. And still 5'10", all the same measurements, everything exact same as me. Other than they have a little bit more body fat. So that body fat is also associated with decrease in muscle mass. Right? Because now they have to make up room for having a decrease in muscle mass of the equal percentage that I have in the body fat. So I'm going to, for every extra pound of lean muscle mass I have, I'm going to demand a lot more energy to fuel those muscles. So that means my metabolism is going to be higher without me even doing anything.
So it means that he gets to eat more.
Yeah, exactly. So if you look at a resting rate for the two of us, mine would be higher even if we don't do anything on the same day. So say we eat the exact same amount of food. It's extremely healthy. Both of us have a very healthy day, 3 meals a day. But we eat the same calories. If his is still more than what he is expending in the day, he will gain weight. Mm-hmm. Since my resting metabolic rate would be higher than his, what I eat in the day might actually still be lower.
Right. And so to bring this back and make this a tidbit for you, a lot of times when we see some of our clients, say you are 180, 190 pound female in your 40s or 50s, dropping your calories too low can be just as detrimental because we don't want to do these drastic drops. And so for someone who's 150 pounds versus 200 pounds, even if that 200 pounds is because you have more fat on your body than you would want to, and I feel like we all have that kind of issue, you still are going to need more calories. And so for you, a drop may be, if you're a 180-pound female, it may be a drop from 1,900 calories to 1,700 calories. And that's going to be enough for you to start to lose weight. Versus somebody who is, say, 150 pounds and 5'2", mm-hmm. For her, she may be needing 100 or 1,500 calories. And then to drop weight, she's going to go to 1,300 calories. That 1,300 calories is really on the low end. But I'm trying to make the argument that your starting point and your starting weight, regardless of body fat percentages, is going to be higher because you have more mass. You have more weight that you need to support. And so dropping your calories too drastically, and a lot of the women that we see, mm-hmm. I feel, tend to yo-yo a bit more in terms of their diet because they think that they need to have these huge drops in calories and need to be starving in order to be dropping that weight. And it's just simply not true.
Yeah. So what happens when, we had someone come in and tell us that they were a big yo-yo dieter, meaning they'd have, 1,100 calories one day and 2,500 or 2,600 the next day.
Usually on a Saturday or Sunday, let's be honest.
So what happens when they go to that day where they only have 1,100 calories, our body will almost shut down your metabolism. So why it does that is it wants to protect the body. It feels like your body is going into starvation. And it is. Realistically, that is starvation for your body.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So it shuts down all non-essential components. So one of your non-essential components is metabolism.
It's like is dropping weight. And, actually, so I have a personal example. When I was in my early 20s, I decided that I wanted to do one of the fitness modeling / bodybuilding competitions. And so I went on a pretty drastic weight cut. And I know that it's pretty popular in the fitness space for you to see kind of the fitness models on the front of the magazines. That can make us feel awful sometimes, even though we've been dieting forever. Anyway, so I decided that I was going to do one of those competitions. And my metabolism, just based on me as a person, is relatively high, much sometimes to Nick's dismay. I can lose weight a little bit quicker. And I went down to probably about 1,300 or 1,400 calories per day. And I did this for 16 to 20 weeks. It was probably closer to 20 weeks. In contrast, now I eat probably closer to 2,000 calories to maintain my body weight. And so I will tell you, I lost a ton of weight. I was probably about 12 or 13% body fat, which was very low. But Nick's right. All my body, because it was trying to conserve, lost so many of my other things that my body felt were non-essential. And so I was trying to go through my master's in physio, and my attention was just awful. I couldn't concentrate. I was really tired all the time because my body was telling me, I don't want you to use more energy than is absolutely necessary. So I'm going to feel like lethargic, But the crazy thing about that was when I finished the competition and I started eating more, not only did I get into kind of a almost binge eating part in my life, and I can talk about that on a different episode, but my body absorbed everything. Mm-hmm. And that was because I was in too much of a deficit for too long. It impacted my metabolism after. I gained about 25 pounds in a very short amount of time. And it really did affect me from a hormones perspective, because we're talking about metabolism as one kind of topic, but metabolism really is so much about your hormones and things like that, which is why I think a lot of our clients complain around menopause. Yeah,
we hear a lot of menopause, thyroid, things like that. And these are all definitely significant things you will have to deal with, because two people are not going to react the same way to a thyroid issue, and two people aren't going to react the same way to menopause, right? Some people have hot flashes, some won't, some will feel cold even. Mm-hmm. So it's so person dependent. But what I will say is through this time, your hormones will be off a little bit and your metabolism will fluctuate. Mm-hmm. You can control it better with exercise, because your metabolism by default with exercise will be higher.
Yeah, absolutely. And so let's talk a little bit about how exercise affects your metabolism that day. So what happens after we exercise to our metabolism? And is there a difference between strength training and cardio?
So there's a lot of research coming out in that specific area right now, because for a long time, everyone thought you had to lose weight. You could only do conditioning and cardio, and you had to be on the stepper for ever, and it just felt awful and no one wanted to do it. So starting to look at it now, it hasn't been completely defined, but it is proving that muscle contractions, which happens when you start to weight train, is just as effective at increasing your metabolic rate as formal conditioning. But on the converse side, on the flip side of it, it does not burn as many calories. So you don't use the same energy. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So you will, so with weight training, you will increase your metabolic rate for a couple hours after, but you won't burn the same amount of calories as you did using conditioning.
Right. Right. So the idea is that, it's just like, I think in a lot of things in health and fitness, people try to go in one camp with exercise. Mm-hmm. It's like you either have to run or you have to strength train. And really, it can be person dependent. Although I will argue that strength training is super important, especially as we get older. See episode 2.
This is episode 2.
This is episode 3.
Oh, well, look at us. Yeah, so it's a combination. You need a bit of both. You can't be solely one way or solely the other. It's much like any type of diet or anything else you can think of, right? You can't be completely on one side of the fence.
Right. It's like anything done to the extreme can be too much.
Yep.
Okay, so in terms of metabolism, and this I actually don't know, so I'm asking Nick, what is the role of different types of food? Do they alter our metabolism? You see a lot of things come up on social media about, put cumin in your food or cinnamon in your food because it'll boost your metabolism. Are those true?
So specific types of food,
like spicy
no.
foods?
So what that does is spicy food actually, it doesn't boost your metabolism, boosts your internal temperature, which, yes, you can argue does boost your metabolism, but it's not to a very large extent, right? So it's saying I ran to the bathroom, therefore I did exercise today. Yes, technically, but it's not that big of a deal. It's not that big of a benefit to make it a big deal. But you can, through proper nutrition, control hormones that control metabolism better. So, yes, your diet does have a big effect on your metabolism. If you have too much fat or not enough, your metabolism will lower. It's the same with if you have high sugar, like
processed sugars?
Like processed sugar, like if you go to the grocery store or anything and you get
cookies.
Go to the candy aisle,
Candy.
cookies. Your insulin will spike, which in turn will up your metabolism very slightly, but it will drop rapidly after.
Right. And that's your blood sugar response to food. And I feel like that is a completely different episode. Awesome. Okay. So in terms of, we talked about our metabolism as being one component in the very complicated hormone background that is our bodies. Can you name any like specific hormones that will directly affect your metabolism? Like, do the sex hormones affect your metabolism?
Yeah. So men are going to have a higher metabolic rate just because we have testosterone.
And you have more muscle too.
And you will generally have more muscle mass.
Maybe I have more muscle than you. I wish this was a video. You could see that I was flexing.
Flex off. Big flex off. Yes and no. So, yes, testosterone and things like that will affect metabolism. That's also a big byproduct of age and sex. Like when you are 18, 17, 16 male, your testosterone level are through the roof. That's why you can recover faster. You can eat anything you want because
you're invincible.
You're invincible. You can eat anything you want because your metabolism's through the roof because you have so much testosterone going through your body. As we age, naturally, as men as well, testosterone will decrease. Yep,
absolutely. Absolutely. So, and I think that's where, ladies, you'll see if you start becoming perimenopausal or, after pregnancy, your sex hormones will switch, that you may notice changes in your metabolism that may take a little bit of time to adjust or equalize after kind of you've gone through your postpartum period or around menopause. And those are just changes across the lifespan that are going to happen, right?
Yep, completely.
Awesome. So I thought that was a really good discussion around metabolism. Is there anything else that you think that we kind of missed?
No, just that both. So a lot of people will point to either fat, carbs, and protein as what control your metabolism, which is true, but there's a big component of a lot of the micronutrients like zinc and iron and all those things that will have a huge impact on your metabolism as well. So you really have to take those into account, and you have to get in a full diet of those as well.
So just like anything else, we need to not be too extreme with any of our macronutrients, and all of our vitamins and nutrients that we get from all of our fruits and veggies are going to be super important.
Yeah, I think that's it. Do you have any other questions?
No, I think that's it. I think that's a really good kind of introduction to metabolism. So if we want to sum that up, we want to say that, our metabolism does decrease with age. Yep. I think that was one that we kind of highlighted. But the amount that it decreases is only about 5% per decade.
5% if you don't do anything. So you can change it to 1 to 2% through lifestyle changes.
Yes, because as we get older, we tend to sit more. We do not exercise as much. We, have to bring in some of the moolah. So sometimes we have jobs that force us to sit too much, and that can drop our metabolism too, just because we spend so much of our day not really doing much.
Yep. And it's a big cycle. It's so interwoven in what we do as well, because as we age, we feel tired, so we stop doing
and we get into that spiral.
And then, as we stop doing as much, our metabolism will lower, so we'll actually feel even more tired. And then And
if we put on weight, it's harder for us to move around.
Oh, we can go on and on about that. And that's really what this is all about, so.
Yep, absolutely. So that is our second point. So point number 1 being that our metabolism does decrease with age, but it's probably not as much as you think. Number 2 is that lifestyle factors really can mitigate that loss.
Yep.
And so if we continue to stay active, try and move around as much as we can during the day, that we are going to see a big boost in our metabolism.
Yep.
Number 3 is that muscle is a huge driver in our metabolism. So keeping our muscles nice and strong by staying active and keeping up with all of our exercise is going to be really important.
Yep.
And I guess number 4 is that we want to make sure that we keep a balanced diet of all of our macronutrients, like our carbs, fats, and protein, and then our micronutrients, which are all the vitamins and minerals from our foods that help keep our body in a good state of equilibrium.
Yep.
Are those pretty good?
I think that's all
right.
Good spot. The dog needs out.
The dog needs out, so we're going to have to, he's the one who's calling the bell on this. Okay, so thank you all so much for joining us. Thank you for the download. I hope that you continue to follow along. If you liked our episode, we would love if you would go to iTunes and give us a review. And just show someone else who may be interested in learning a little bit more about some of these healthy lifestyle factors that we're kind of bringing to you. All right. We will see you all next week.
Yeah, have a good day.
Bye, guys.
Bye. It's pizza.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Stave Off podcast. I am one of your hosts, Christina Novak. I'm a registered physiotherapist and current PhD student in the School of Rehabilitation Science at McMaster University, looking at healthy aging. And I am here with my co-host and business.
Hit me. Thank you for listening to the Stave Off podcast. Go to staveoff.ca to check out the show notes and more helpful content and how you can lead a long and happy life.